Hello. It's another game-winning drive. Mikey's a black square right now, but I know he's probably just having some technical difficulties. So lots happened since we last hung out on Tuesday. Here we go, Mikey. Hey, Mikey.
Hey,
good time, dude.
Off to a bad start.
I was just saying, lots happened since we last hung out, man. The Thanksgiving, that's one storm of a century type of thing. Plus, there was a whole other round a few days later worth talking about. But
the interest in this podcast has dropped 96% since last week.
Yes. Every week over week, it just keeps minus 96%.
Our numbers are dropping. Eventually, it's just gonna be Brett Ritchie listening to us.
No, dude, he got knocked out on Sunday, man. So it's just gonna be, me and you, dude.
Basically, talking into the wind, blowing hot air into the wind.
Yes. I mean, the money though is so big that it's like the chance to win $18 million. It's real to these people now, and I think there's going to be a lot to talk about as we get closer. I mean, there's going to be some bad beats. There's going to be a $9 million bad beat some way, probably.
Now it's in retrospect. I'm going to try this. In retrospect, it feels stupid that we were talking about the possibility of there being 100 people winning this thing, and dude, in one foul swoop, it cleared everybody out and answered that question, huh?
Yeah. It's hard for four dogs to win, though, man. That was pretty rare when
I remember, last week we were talking, and we were like, well, this whole thing could change if there's an upset on Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Right.
I remember the conversation being an upset, and damn, if it wasn't like dominoes, they just all toppled one after the next.
Yes. It was crazy to experience, right? Like, you need to see one dog win, and you're like, the next dog ain't winning, and then it wins, and then all of a sudden all three win, and you're like, these Bears, that would just be too crazy if all the dogs win. Not that it has anything connected to each other, right? But
right. It's also I don't know, in the grand scheme of things, it's like presumably, if you've made it this far on the that's pretty far. Your ticket's worth some real money, and you think you have a groove going, and you're like, oh man, okay, now to swing for the fences because I saved my teams for this exact moment, and you get there, and then obviously you get dispatched. But even more than that, I thought that was like a even worse feeling were the handful of teams that made it through Thanksgiving and then were on the Rams for the weekend. That is like a mega gut punch because you're so crafty. You narrowly avoided catastrophe just like 3 days earlier, and then the whole thing explodes when you take what you think is the sure thing after you just bank your victory on the hard part.
Right. You were on a 25% of that one, and now you're on an 80%er, and you're dead with a minute left in the game. Even though you got
it's like I don't know, like a qualifier makes Wimbledon or something, and the first round he plays Djokovic, and he beats Djokovic, and the next round he loses to some bum,
Right. And also, the gap after Thanksgiving, after the Eagles game to the deadline the next day, is 24 hours about. And it's kind of crazy to, like, a survivor decision. Obviously, everyone's been planning things and looking forward, but you don't really know what the decision is until the field's sorted out on Thanksgiving. So only having one day to think about it, that's got to be tough on people, I would think. I don't know. Maybe enough people had things planned out, but
well,
I don't know.
I don't know. it seemed like the Sunday slate, I guess if that's what you want to call it, was like mm, pretty clearly defined. It wasn't like there was a whole lot of decision making that needed to take place. But
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that I agree with that. I think a lot of these weeks, maybe everything after Thanksgiving, is like if you're looking at availability to make projections, then it's not that hard because so many teams are just really low available.
Yeah, and I know that you and I had talked about this notion of projections, and we were tossing. I was tossing around the idea that, like, yes, week one it's fine because there's 18,000 people. So like, if you predict 9% on this, going this way on one team, 230 people can choose opposite, and you're still at like 8.7%. So it looks like you're nailing the projection. Now you got 45 people or 40 people left, and it's you project 10%, and then two teams go the other way, and it's like your projection is so far off.
Yes. Yes. Like last week, we projected 0 on 49ers. Or at the beginning of the week, we did at least. And then 7 people ended up doing that. Or I guess our projections went out Friday. But that's just an example of that. Those 7 brains switching really swung that number. And we do have projections out on Atlas for this week. But before talking about this week, I want to go over Thanksgiving a little bit more, dude, because I feel like
Yeah, it deserves it. I guess to put it in perspective, has a weekend like this ever in your Survivor experience, has a weekend like this ever happened? Be it Thanksgiving or like or just a regular old weekend where like the top 6 lose or something like that.
um well, the first thing that comes to my brain, I got a scar from Christmas 21 where if the Browns just kick a field goal, that meant all the dogs would have won, and that meant we would have scooped the entire prize pool. So it was kind of close to that in 21 for Christmas. Thanksgiving, though, it's none have been quite like this, but going into the weekend, it really was reminding me about multiple spots in the past where there's like a very popular team that's -7 that everyone's going to be on, and in the few years Circus Survivors existed, that's gotten absolutely punished. Maybe half the years, Dallas a couple times, and now Philly, and comparing what am I trying to say? Thinking about these Thanksgivings and the underdogs, that's what's the interesting thing about them, I think, from a value point of view. But if you want to try to find value, it has to know how many other people are going to be on the choice with you.
Yeah.
Like we knew 55% were on the Eagles, 3 were on the Bears, 3%. So that's a pretty sweet ratio. But if that was 55% of the field on the Eagles and 40% of the field on the Bears, it wouldn't be any good. The reason it's good is because you get that leverage, right? So going back in the past, and there was a couple spots, and finding those and seeing how many people in the field back then went to the crazy choice, even though they didn't have to. Like this happened in 2020 and 21, where people were like smart picking dogs, and it was way before the discussion around value like blew up about Survivor. So the point being, it was an interesting problem going into Thanksgiving, trying to figure out if there was going to be 2% on Chicago or 12%, and not to mention the other dogs.
Yeah.
And not to mention the Green Bay Detroit. How many people picked that game as a whole really affected the underdog EVs.
Right.
So if you knew people weren't going to do that, it was safer to do dogs. If a lot of people were going to be in that game, it wasn't as good. So there was lots of angles on this, and the fact that all the dogs won, that's 49 entries, and it was only like 10 or 12 that had to go down. So like 35 or whatever people entries chose dogs like voluntarily. Like I'm making a play. and now the field is packed with these people.
I was just gonna say that aside from everything else, like getting to the point that we're at now, it I don't know. It the your people that are in the contest remaining with you are the caliber of people that are capable of selecting an underdog at a time when it's bucks the trend. I should say.
Right. And
It's almost like getting to a poker. You're in a poker tournament, like you're playing the main event, and like the final 40 are all pro players, basically.
right, well, sitting on your left or whatever.
Yeah,
Um, I know from the outside it might seem like, oh, the people who survived were just like the dummies who didn't have any favorites because they probably didn't know the rules, burned up all the good teams. But
yeah, quite the opposite.
quite the opposite. This field's packed with big brain people,
Yeah,
and um, we always talk about the ball knowledge, right? And I wonder if there's lots of other kind of poker player types. You
yeah,
know, you heard that one guy on Twitter has a few entries. He had like some type of syndicate, and then uh, I know someone else. It's like a poker player and his buddy. They have an entry. Another group has like that. But these poker players, I wonder how much ball knowledge they're using. Are they all doing math plays? Are they? Uh, I know my approach, but I just wonder if other people are.
my inclination would be that they are probably not even NFL fans, like not even really interested in.
They're just. You think they're
Yeah,
just in there trying to earn the chips?
I think so.
Hmm.
I think
Well,
I remember talking to I don't know, some people about it. Maybe it was like Galfond a long time ago, but it was like you know, people constantly ask like, why poker? Why'd you get into poker? And it was like that was the thing that allowed for the most money to be transacted. If it was chess that was getting a shit ton of action, and like 10x the amount that you could bet on chess was possible versus poker, I'm sure all these brainiacs would be playing chess.
right. And Survivor is like the exact other end of the spectrum than chess, right? Where chess is like no luck, and Survivor it's like it's the
Yeah.
most luck, and I guess that's what attracts the money. Uh, so yeah, everyone in the field, or most people in the field, practically the entire field is like has intuition about the numbers or something like that.
Suffice
Um,
to say that they've thought about it, not just shooting from the hip.
yeah, like years ago, making a deep run 21, we were like maybe speculating some people were thinking like us, but when it came down to reading their decisions, we assumed okay, they're all just going to slam the best possible thing, and we just got to like earn the value from it. But this field, you don't know what they're going to do, and
Yeah.
I'm reminded of so at Bet Bash this year at the seminar, we ran a little EV game, and first it was like a coin flip, and you just pick a side and you try to be on the least popular side because it's like a you know survivors payout style, if that makes sense. So the next we did another game and it was 60-40, a coin flip that was 60-40. And if you're playing Survivor and this was the only game you had to pick, you'd pick the 60% to win thing, right? But after 30 minutes of hearing Gabe talk about EV, you might go down to the 40% trying to get the EV. Anyway, we played that game, and most people in the class picked the underdog. And I'm just throwing this out because on Christmas, when there's a Dallas Washington popular, widely available game, it might be we get a bunch of value people looking for the value on the underdog, and they all group up so much that it's a big EV loser. Am I making any sense, Mikey?
Yeah. So there's two things that I think of based on what you just said. The first is the long term impact of this past weekend and the short term impact of this past weekend.
Mm,
So, long term, let's take Survivor 2026, right? Or the year after. Are people now going to look back at this exact weekend and it's going to not, I wouldn't say dramatically. It's that you're never going to get people like dramatically shifting off a 10-point favorite or something like that. But I suspect that we see the numbers increase, you know, next year in a similar situation with people being like, well, you know, Thanksgiving last year, all the dogs won. So, you know, maybe that's the play. And then in the short term, how do you think that this impacts the Christmas slate? And it's harder to say because there's only 40 people now left now when there was 800. But
Yeah.
where now, like one person picking, you know, a way that you didn't expect can, you know, pretty much alter your calculus in terms of whether it's a smart move to be on an underdog.
Yes, I think uh, it matters which entries are alive that day, obviously, right? But there's a bunch of entries left in Circa where they're going to be on Washington or Minnesota, which are the two biggest dogs anyway. So once there's already some guaranteed dogs and not many entries to go around anyway, you know, each entry really matters on Christmas. But you got to expect everyone's going to be playing it smart, and also the idea of randomizing when you're not sure which play to make. I could see people doing that this year, maybe like week 17 or week 18 to try to not play as exploitable. For example, one of those weeks, let's say a bunch of people in the field are forced down to a -3. You know, maybe week 18, Cincinnati's playing whoever. I don't know. But you know, if it's the best play for half the field and there's like a -1 point team, that you should pick sometimes just so you can have a chance at Island. Maybe randomizing for it is the right play. I don't know. But
Here's another.
I'm
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I can't wait to see how the field plays because it is cool this year, I think, rather than making ball reads.
Here's another question for you. If we get down to you know, maybe let's say like 10 players, um, do you do you think that there's some of those 10 people will camp out at Circa looking for one of the other 9 to see if they're coming in to hedge their play and
Mm.
going in and, you know, asking the teller who that person took with their 200K or whatever?
Ooh, that's a decent angle, Mikey. Just,
I don't know if I should have said that. Maybe we delete that.
dude, right? People are gonna need to have private security going to Circa
Yeah,
because
or
Mikey's in
like
the parking lot.
or they do the latex Mission Impossible mask of one of the other uh, people that are remaining in the contest. Go up, fake bet, you know, to dupe a watcher, and then after the watcher puts his bet in, you pull the mask off.
Dude, and I mean, you could go through with all that, and
And
I'm not
still
sure if there's
still
any
get knocked
material.
out.
Right. I'm not sure there's any material advantage and all that stuff.
He spent 15 grand on a latex mask.
Yeah, right. And, you know, this week, next week, I guess the next 3 weeks, I don't even know if that stuff matters too much. So many people have a team and a path kind of set out.
Yeah. Plus, when you're at 40, it's, you know, it's just a bit too many.
Yes, I do think, you know, you're talking about the implications short term and long term. Long term, it's a huge event, that Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
because you know I've been playing all the Circus Survivors. I've always followed content, what people are making, and I would think the biggest like Survivor like content influence is from VSIN. You know, VSIN, they got the
Yeah.
show right in Circa. They feed so many people to Circa. They're the ones kind of like pushing the
Talking
message out of
games. Yeah.
Survivor. Yeah, and they have always been like behind on the value stuff. Like no one there knew it, kind of.
Like dummy talk.
Yeah, like if you knew 100 people were on the Cowboys, would you take the Raiders? And like now it's like, yeah, it's a pretty easy math problem. Like they're bing
Yeah.
bang ball. And the fact that this Thanksgiving occurred where every dog got wiped out, or excuse me, every favorite got wiped
Yeah.
out, and all the people who chose the underdogs, it's like a bunch of like poker player like
MITs.
Yeah, like I'm not sure what football like survivor players who don't know about poker think about poker players, but like poker players, they're like really smart in like a dumb way or dumb in a smart. I'm not sure how to say it. Maybe you have a better line for it, but poker players are smart. You can't be like relying on poker professionally if you
Yeah.
if if you don't have a smart chip or something. You know what I'm
It's
saying?
this. So what it reminds me of is, um, when I lived in Vancouver for like a year, and with Galfon and one other guy, and everyone knows Galfon, big time brain, and the other guy I lived with was a big time brain, and I'm a dope, and so we anytime we would do something, it would be like we would play Catan, right? Three-way Catan, and it was just like it's just so frustrating because these guys just can't turn it off. They're like, you think that you're in for like you have like a decent chance of winning. It's like a board game. These guys, they don't play Catan professionally, but it's like, they're working every angle, taking the cards left in the night deck, how many are left, like the odds that you're going to roll this, all this stuff, and it factors in. It's like, and there's no money on the line. But it's just like you can't turn. And even if you're playing like Sorry or Trouble or Parcheesi or something, it's like
Yeah.
there's a brain that is dedicated towards winning at games, and
Yes.
whatever that path is, then they're going to at least analyze or at least think of it. Um, and
Yeah.
so the same goes for Survivor. You put any of these guys in Survivor, and it's like they're going to at least think about an optimal move that kind of bucks the trend or that you might not expect. But
Yes. Hey, that makes sense. I think it just makes me next year really want to pit these two sides against each other, like the ball knowers versus the don't even watch the game guys.
yeah,
And I think it's easy to point at the people like poker players, especially if they're teaming up with their friends and they got 20, 30 entries. And you think,
yeah,
oh, they just like bought enough entries.
yeah,
So
to get there.
which if you bought 20 entries, you only have one surviving by Thanksgiving, right? 95% were wiped out by then.
Yeah.
So if you bought 20 entries, just so you'd have a 20K entry on Thanksgiving just to put it on a dog, that's awesome to me. I think like anyone knocking they don't like Survivor. Like, you want people coming to the game with crazy strategies with their money and let them choose whatever they want. I don't know
I
what my point
think
was.
we talked about it very early. It might even been before the season started, but I said that what we were originally going to talk about on this podcast was like not necessarily, some football stuff, but not like we're not an ESPN show. The thing that interests us is the underlying game of Survivor, and football is just the way in which this game is scored. And so this could be like Chinese badminton or whatever, Survivor, and we would still be able to talk, with the best course of action on who you're picking in that.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think that's still what is interesting to me. That is much more interesting to me than football. So yeah, I don't know where I was going, but it was just I'm just much more interested in the game element of Survivor than I am, navigating who's going to beat who and the spreads and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so the Survivor Atlas angle is like all the game stuff. If we can just keep pushing that forward until the entire world is like pretty good at Survivor math and thinking about Survivor whatever, then it's full circle and we're back to ball knowledge again. Like
Yeah, it's
get ahead.
true.
Like
It,
once
it's
everyone.
yeah, it's the same thing as poker. We constantly bring it back to poker, but it's like there was a period of time from 2000 to whatever 2015 where you'd have these long, elaborate posts by people. This is what I think you should do. I think you should do this. And then by 2017 or whenever the solvers came out, it was like, just put it in the solver, dude. We don't need some long explanation. And now it's back to like, solver says this, but I did this, or not always the case, but we're back to intuition and gut.
Yes, no, I think that is the dream, is for every household to have a survivor entry, and also the strategy and the data stuff being clear, open, and obvious to everyone, so ball reads alone will separate the wheat from the chaff. That's the dream. But my ball reads, I don't know if I've had many ball reads on lately, so I don't know if that's a good thing.
I do also want to mention that the weekend, Thanksgiving, was also somewhat comforting to me, because if you remember, our entry lost on, I think it was Packers or something, where we were like 10.5-point favorites or something.
Packers, Panthers, dude. Panthers are the best team. You picked against the Panthers. What were you thinking?
Panthers have to be the team that's knocked out the most people this year.
We had that statistic last year on the website, but I don't think it exists anymore.
But where I was going with that is I am uber confident that our entry would have been on a loser on Thanksgiving.
Yeah. You guys wouldn't have been. Wouldn't have had the stones to go for.
Definitely not. So we've been double eliminated for sure. So it's like it's much more comforting than having in your mind picking after the fact and then only losing once. No,
right,
we are officially out twice.
But okay, since this like run of yours, and you also experienced the Thanksgiving thing, and maybe your guys didn't as much, but when you guys are faced with a similar choice, do you in your heart want to be the guy who goes for the EV, or do you want to be the guy who agrees on the ball read with everyone? Like, how are you gonna?
I could answer one way, but my heart tells me the other way, and my heart is a pussy. It's I would have been on Eagles all the way.
Man, you got to have more entries in, man. That's why. That's
well, it's funny you say that, because I played in a poker game the other day with these same group of guys that bought the tickets, and two of them said, "Hey, you know what we're doing next year? Everybody puts in 1,000, not 100."
Yeah.
So we have 10 entries next year.
That's awesome, and it was also kind of predictable that it's just so fun. It's just so fun, man. Once you get
it was predictable because we made it as far as we did. If we were out in week 2, this I don't feel the same. The same juices would have been flowing across the board.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Also, we're up tenfold in after one season. After the second season, if we make it to 13, I think the guys are going to be like, "All right, can each of you do like 10K?" We need like 100 entries.
That's what everyone does, man. Like everyone, you start with 1, you start with single digits, you get a taste, you want more, and then you have 10, and you're like, you lose that, and you're like, shoot, I need to convince my friends to play and swap with them, and then that's how it spreads. Like and it keeps working. And this year, all those weeks lasting is going to gas it up even more in the future. I'm sure of it. So for your guys though, well, I'm just throwing this out because we're starting to look at next year for Atlas, and what we need to be making. Because Atlas, every year we make stuff, we try to make stuff better, make stuff cooler.
Yeah.
And thinking about, I feel like there's lots of groups that I kind of ran into this year. Your group, oh, we got an entry, we're having so much fun picking and arguing. Other groups as well doing this, and we're trying to think of some Atlas ways where we could kind of maybe
embrace this.
Yeah, and help groups play together, whether it's voting. I mean, I know the group chat is pretty good, but maybe voting, and also like during the vote, when someone disagrees with you, being able to sell some shares to the person who wants your votes. Maybe there would be something cool there.
you bring up some good points. There's something here. I don't know what it is, but there's something here, and you got to keep in mind that I'm the youngest of my group, and I'm not super young, so uh,
Yeah,
you
you're
know,
one of the youngest people playing Circus Survivor, though, man.
is that true? That can't be true.
No, that's not true. But
What's the average? What's the average age of a Survivor entry?
45, I think.
Okay, I'll go. I'll
Maybe
go with
higher.
that. I'll go with that.
Maybe higher, because I guess poker players are like 40 now.
I know.
From the lost generation or from the last generation.
We were talking. I was talking about this with I can't remember. Maybe it was Jeremy Osmus the other day,
Mm.
and we were saying that there's this generation gap. Like there's older players than us. Like I don't know, Negreanu's like probably 10 years older than us, something like that. But we're kind of in his generation at this point. And then
Is
there's
he
this
like
other
70 now, by the way?
what?
Negreanu? Is Negreanu like 70 now or
Yeah, I think he's like 75 or something. But there's this other group. I feel like because our people our age in our group are so far ahead, um, you know, because we've been playing since 2000. So there's this group of people that are probably like maybe 29 to 20 right now that just doesn't exist because they don't have online for the most part, and
Mm.
it's difficult for them to crack anywhere because you have these other people that are 31 to 46 that are significantly better than these new guys ever will be. So there's like this generation gap where there's not going to be any, and maybe there's newcomers that are growing up starting poker with solvers that are gonna get there eventually. But like I think there's going to be this gap between like 35 people that are 35 now and 25 now, where there just aren't poker players from that gap.
It might just be a dead skill, man. And like, in the 90s, if you were good at like writing an essay, you could
Right.
do something with that.
Now
But
now
now,
you're gone. Now you're useless.
yeah. So like, okay, some kid learning poker now or whatever. I don't know if there's much room for that, but
That's another
uh,
thing is like, where are you going to apply your trade to make any sort of real money?
yes. And I guess to connect it to the Survivor, there's never a bunch of 20-year-olds playing because they don't. 10K is hard to come by, right?
I feel like
Um,
gambling for that age group is looked down upon.
the 20s, the Zoomers.
Yeah, like people that are right now that are like 18 to 29.
Oh, I assume they were just addicted to it and are
Do you
just
think?
cracked
Maybe
out
I'm
on
wrong.
DraftKings.
You
Huh?
might be right. You might be right. I just have this feeling that like they either they're not good at it or they look down on it.
Dude, it's like the hyper gamification of the entire world. Everyone's getting their brain juiced up on uh,
Parlays and
parlays and prediction markets are coming and meme coins and
everything's a gamble.
GameStop. Yeah.
So maybe
But
their view is like similar to the people that are like 80 now. Like gambling it's coming full circle, I guess. There's the group in the middle that are, you know, old school gamblers at this point. But I
hmm,
don't know. Coming full circle back to gambling is evil.
yes. Hey, I've seen there's a way or a increase of Christianity among young people. Is that
I
true,
saw
you think?
that too. It's mostly like young men.
Right, try um yeah, anyway, so because of we know the survivor demographic, and because of Thanksgiving, it's going to be a very different look at the winner's circle this year, the winner's photos or whatever, the winner's ceremony at Circa.
Yeah.
Um,
Big brain
People
nerd
are,
alerts.
yeah, the people. I'm just sure the people who pick the dogs on Thanksgiving will look like a different crowd than the people who try to maximize survival.
Yeah. Pocket
And
protectors.
yeah, pocket protectors and hoodies, maybe.
Graphing calculators.
Yeah, dude. Someone bring a TI-83 to the winners thing if you use one this year. Yeah, so I guess we could talk about this week a little bit because it is interesting, but
it's gonna feel like such a letdown if you are one of the people that have made it this far and you bust your entry over the next 6 weeks.
yeah, I mean the hedging thing is within distance, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. What, how many people do you think are hedging some nominal amount?
I would think. Okay, well, one thing is how many of these entries are just owned by a single person?
Yeah,
Maybe like everyone's got partners at this point. Everyone's like trading, swapping, selling, dealing.
Yeah, because that's another thing that's common in the group of people that would have made it through this Thanksgiving. It's like it's commonplace to do some sort of swap,
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like in when they first announced it, me and Craig saw the news, and we were like, let's go sign up. You want to swap? Like, it was literally our first thought in the head, like, let's swap 5%. Right. The very first day we knew Circa Survivor existed. So every year when you get more entries and you have more friends that knew about how much fun you had the year before, it kind of builds. But what was your question, Mike? How many people are going to hedge?
Hedge to some, at this point, it feels like you have to do some not have to, but you can't go crazy with it. You're going to find yourself in a situation where, like, if you start hedging out now, it's like, you're locking in, I don't know, not that much.
Yeah, so there are a few people who are forced to go down to the Browns. They might not, but they don't have a lot of favorites, right? So maybe if you're forced on some type of stupid team where, like, you don't believe in them, but you have to do it for Survivor, there might be. What do you think about that?
The other way is, like, how you do your hedging, and that we're also talking about a self-selecting group of the people that made it through Thanksgiving are more than capable of devising a competent hedging plan.
Ooh, I mean, it's tricky when you say that, competent hedging plan.
I guess, but it's also a group that's not super comfortable giving up 7% or whatever you're whatever you're electing to give up with the VIG or however it is that you devise your strategy.
Right. When you say, like, hedging plan, the first thing that pops in my head is this dude was on VSiN a few years ago. Forget his name, but they had him on to talk about hedging in Circa. And, there was still lots of entries. Let's say there was 100 entries left. Yeah. And there was like 8 teams picked. And he went through this full hedging plan that involved betting on every one of the games.
He was just an employee. He might have had to have been an employee of Circa.
That's what I was thinking. And people are quoting this dude like, oh, he's a genius at hedging. But yes, he correctly picked the sizes, so you would make money if you busted or whatever. But, like, you just paid
at what cost?
Right. I think people don't think about that. They don't think
at a certain point he was like, all right, bet 10,000 on the Browns, and they're playing the Steelers, so you only want to bet 7,000 on the Steelers.
Right. There was not
Dude, yeah. We don't need to go opposite.
Dude, I gotta find that video because it pops my head every time anyone like suggests a hedging. When you say strategy, it's like, whoa, you're talking a lot more stuff than just throwing a hedge, just betting against my team. You're talking like, yeah. I'm betting the favorites too.
It's like covering every number in roulette, but just with different amounts.
Right. But, like,
you're sure, betting we could do that. I mean, if you like if your goal is to get the feeling of having chips pushed to you, we can accomplish that.
That's for yeah, it's funny too, thinking about how much Circa was sharing that video. Like, yeah, this guy knows.
Definitely do this. Also, you should do player props.
If you hedge twice as much on all these things, you make twice as much.
or do Tom Brady under yards, because if they win, it's likely he's going to have under yards, right? So you want to bet on that.
Yeah, this Super Bowl feels like overtime's coming, guys. 2-1 on overtime. Come get it.
Safety first score of the game, 10-1.
10-1, come get it. Put a video about, now we're hedging the safety bet. We found angles. Anyway, yeah, hedgers, I mean, this week, I feel like once people made it through Thanksgiving and now the entry is 400K, I would think everyone's thinking about stuff like that. We went from 20K per entry to 400K real quick, right? Like,
yeah.
And this, I think at Thanksgiving, people didn't really have time to adjust because it happened so fast. It's a whole different contest. There's another week, which already happened Sunday, and now there's now is the week for everyone to figure out like where they stand, right? Like, are they going for it? Are they starting the hedge now so they can get their binds back for next year? I don't know. It seems like clicking people's paths. Lots of people have kind of easy paths, especially next week.
It feels that way. It definitely feels that way. And that's why, like, prior to Thanksgiving, I was, I think it was last week, maybe it was the week before, that you and I were talking about it. And it was like, you've gotten to this point and it seems as if you have everyone can kind of visualize their path forward, and you don't really have any landmines that you're thinking of. This was obviously before last week, but it doesn't necessarily change the fact that you don't really see any big time landmines on your path to get there. You're at how many weeks remain? 7, 8? I don't know.
6 choices.
6 choices remain. So you have to hit a 6-game parlay where you're taking huge money line favorites, where your payout is probably like, I don't know, 2-1, maybe even less, if you're taking the, big enough favorites. So it feels, it certainly feels real, but getting across the finish line is not always as easy as it's going to seem.
Yeah, there's plenty of entries too, which are just destined to be on some weak teams, 16, 17, 18. From stuff I was looking at, it looks like the best entries is like 25% to make the end, and the worst entries are like 10%. So that's interesting. Hey, Mike, did you hear that fact I just dropped? The best entry is like 25% to win. The worst entry is like 10% to make the end.
Yeah, that's another thing that you and I talked about, is like the value of an individual pick, right? It was like, or like the value of an individual entry, like an entry. Everyone, not everyone, but people think like they've arrived here. Oh, my ticket is worth whatever, 18 million divided by 40, right? Yeah. Not so fast. The difference in value could be, at this point, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yes, and one thing funny about it too is some like bad entries might accidentally be very good because of some EV stuff that happens. For example, lots of people are forced into Minnesota, Washington. But what if only one person goes on Washington, and then the EV is so crazy because so many people are on Dallas, and like what seemed like a bad entry because it had less good teams than everyone else.
Because you were forced into a bad pick.
Right, and the field didn't like adapt to exploit you enough because the field has their own issues to worry about, like surviving, right?
There's one other thing I want to ask you before we call it quits, but it was we're now at the point where you can look at an individual entry and like examine their path and get an idea of like what they're thinking about, right?
Yeah.
So yes, you can look at the teams they have remaining and probably do okay, judging where each individual entry is going to go. But how much are you factoring in their previous selections from past weeks to build like a archetype of this player like, oh, this is the type of player that didn't take Broncos in week 1, or did take Broncos in week 1, something to that effect, and then
Yeah.
being like, okay, they did take Broncos week 1, so they're the type of player that's going to be on X
Yes.
this coming week.
I think everyone trying to maximize your value, you got to do that stuff. But also, there might only be two archetypes alive, which is the people who were forced to take a dog on Thanksgiving and the people who voluntarily did it. And everyone
Yeah.
in the voluntary bucket is kind of like, that's, you just treat them like the poker player person, right? Like
Yeah. You're
they're
playing
not gonna,
against Jungle Man. You're not playing against Greg Ray or I don't know,
they're not playing
Jamie
against,
Gold.
or I was gonna say Tony Saragusa.
Tony. Okay, fine.
Yeah,
Goose is loose, baby.
you're playing against someone who did that move. So they're like into the value thing, and that's harder to play against than ball knowledge people. If everyone just did the ball knowledge stuff, you can kind of exploit the popularities of them. But if everyone's trying to be a poker player, like not giving up any value based on all this stuff, then it's harder to scoop them. Even if they're dumber at football, it's harder to scoop them.
Yeah.
And of course, there's some of the people, some part of the field who, maybe they just accidentally survived Thanksgiving because they didn't know the rules, burned all the holiday teams. Anyway, is there anything else we should talk about today, Mikey?
No, I think we covered. Oh yeah, go hit it.
Grandissimo ended with 6 winners, and kind of congrats to everyone, of course.
Not
there were,
and not like super congrats, like medium, mid-level
yeah.
congrats.
Well, I mean, a handful of them are Atlas,
All right,
Atlas
fair
fans,
enough.
so I'm cheering for. So it's cool that like some of them got this part of the check compared to strangers, right? But a little bit disappointing. It was chopped 6 ways. It's pretty unlikely that was going to happen. That there was a 6-way chop. Like it just doesn't. It's hard for things to play out that way.
Yeah.
So kind of lame, but whatever. They got some of my money. Those guys.
It would have been mega hard to go Bears in Grandissimo.
Oh yeah, I never looked up if the EV calc could have supported that, because it was 3. If there was like 3, I gotta type it in, Mikey, before we log off. So if there was like 3 Eagles and only Baltimore, instead of being, that's a loser because not enough people.
Yeah, then you're just an idiot. That's the other thing. Is like, it was big brain move to do it in the regular circa, and yes, it's cool and it worked out and it was plus EV and all that kind of stuff. But the other thing is like these poker players aren't going to make the idiot move and take Bears in that situation when it doesn't make sense to do so.
Say that again. They would or would not?
They would not. They're like,
oh,
they're on the Bears in the situation where it's like, it ends up being hugely beneficial to do so, but they're not going to be on the Bears like, when it like if the projected Eagles ownership was like, I don't know, some regular number. They're not just going to like punt it on the Bears just because. Yeah. That's not the move. They're making a calculated decision, not just like a gunslinger decision.
I think in the future though it'll be a little blurrier because let's say everyone wants to be a poker player style, maximize your value. So everyone slams Bears. Like that's going to happen one of these years where many people.
No. Come on. The main event has been going on for 55 years, and you still get, the exact same number of Dumbos that play the event.
Yeah, but they get sliced up even quicker, right? At the end of the tournament, it's a bunch of wizards.
Yeah,
that's not the case for years.
Yeah, I suppose. But it's not gonna drastically diminish the number of people that'll be on the Eagles in a given situation.
Okay, if the same weekend happened again, I'm not saying there'd be more Bears than Eagles. I'm saying that the Bear, like the equilibrium, will be closer to what the equilibrium should be of people picking Bears 20% of the time, maybe instead of 3%.
I can get behind that to some extent, but it's going to take a lot longer before that that number is approached.
Dude, next year everyone's going to be talking about it. NFL is going to have another great Thanksgiving schedule, and I mean, it's going to be the number one thing to talk about in November 2026, dude. That's the only conversation worth having that month. I feel like you're like standing up, walking around. That means like it's time to get out of here.
Sorry, buddy. Yeah, time to go.
Okay. There will be a tailgate this week, Survivor tailgate. I don't know if anyone's coming, but I'll get up there and say something. And anyone wants to talk about Survivor, please come by. Otherwise, I'll have a little soliloquy. And
hell yeah.
Thanks for hanging out, Mikey.
All right, see you, brother.